What if the person sleeping next to you each night was slowly giving their heart to someone else? Jessica Carter had it all: the perfect husband, the beautiful home, the ideal life. But all it took was one look, one spark, one man who saw her differently, and suddenly, everything she thought was safe began to unravel. Stay with this story, because once the first smile is exchanged, the world Jessica built will begin to quietly fall apart, piece by delicate piece. The morning light in Maple Springs always felt soft, like it had been filtered through a dream. Jessica Carter stood barefoot in the kitchen, her fingers wrapped around a warm mug of coffee, watching the sun stretch over the quiet street. Cooper, their 7-year-old Labrador, rested peacefully at her feet. Her husband Daniel was upstairs, getting ready for work, humming the same classic rock tune he always did. On the surface, everything was picture perfect. And in a way, it truly was. Jessica had married Daniel Carter when she was 25. He was kind, patient, and ambitious in a grounded, modest way. As a civil engineer, he took pride in designing roads and structures, not just for paychecks, but because he genuinely believed in building things that lasted. And yet, Jessica often wondered if they had started treating their marriage the same way, as a structure, a system, built once and expected to hold forever. She had grown tired of pretending that her restlessness was just hormonal, or seasonal, or whatever excuse made her feel less guilty. Deep down, she knew something inside her was aching, not for a new life, but for a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, that rush of being seen. Really seen. Then came Liam Walker. He arrived at Corfit Gym in late March, just after the last of the Colorado snow melted. Jessica first noticed him during her 6 a.m. yoga class, stretching in the back row, his large frame clearly unfamiliar with the gentle flow of vinyas. He was broad-shouldered, around 6 feet 1 inch, with a square jawline and storm gray eyes. His hair was messy, military short on the sides, longer on top. Tattoos crept up one arm, but they were tastefully hidden under his workout shirt. Most of the women at the gym noticed him. But Liam? He only noticed Jessica. After class, he approached her, a simple compliment. "You're an incredible instructor," he said, wiping sweat from his brow with a towel. "Thanks," she replied, offering a professional smile. "You're new here?" "Yeah," he nodded. "Just moved to town. Needed a change of scenery." "I'm Liam." "Jessica," she said, shaking his hand. His grip was warm and firm, but it was the look in his eyes that made her stomach flutter, direct, calm, almost challenging. It had been a long time since someone had looked at her like that. In the days that followed, Liam became a regular, not just at the gym, but in her peripheral vision, always arriving just before her class, always offering a nod or a smile. And slowly, the small talk began to stretch. He told her about his past: served in the Navy, divorced at 25, no kids. Now he worked as a personal trainer, trying to keep things simple. Jessica found herself sharing too. She spoke about her yoga journey, her small Etsy side business, her love for cooking. She mentioned Daniel briefly, but carefully. She wasn't hiding her marriage, just not highlighting it either. Liam never asked inappropriate questions, never crossed the line. Until one morning, he did. "You ever feel like you're living the life you're supposed to want, instead of the one you really want?" She blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" He gave a small shrug. Sometimes it feels like we're all just performing. You know? For neighbors. For family. For ourselves." Jessica didn't answer, because he just described exactly what had been clawing at her insides for months. That night, as she and Daniel sat on the couch watching reruns of The Office, Jessica smiled and laughed at the right moments. She leaned her head on his shoulder. She kissed him goodnight, but her thoughts were elsewhere, in a gym with gray eyes and uncomfortable truths. A week later, the first message came. "Liam, you crushed that class today. You move like someone born in a different world." Jessica stared at the screen. It was bold, but not crude. Intimate, but not explicit. She should have deleted it. Instead, her fingers hovered, then typed. "Flattery makes me suspicious." Seconds later, his reply. "Then I'll have to show you I mean it." The texting grew gradually. A few times a week, then once a day, then multiple times. Small jokes, song recommendations, teasing, compliments. Daniel didn't notice. He was busy with work, busy planning their upcoming 10th anniversary trip. Jessica told herself it was harmless, that she hadn't done anything. But the emotional distance from her husband had started to widen, slowly, like continental drift. And the space was filling with Liam. Then came the day he asked her to coffee. Just friends, he said. She hesitated. But something inside her, something curious, rebellious, hungry, said yes. They met at Cedar Bean Cafe, a quiet little spot tucked behind the florist. It was raining. Jessica wore a soft sweater and no makeup. She felt oddly exposed, and yet free. Liam was already there, seated at a corner table, watching the rain with the kind of calm that unnerved her. "You look beautiful," he said without hesitation. "Careful," she warned with a smile, trying to sound playful. "You say things like that too easily." "I only say what I mean." The conversation was warm, familiar, dangerously comfortable. When their hands accidentally touched across the table, when she didn't pull hers away, something passed between them. An acknowledgement. A silent contract. They hadn't kissed, but they had crossed a line. And Jessica knew she wasn't going to stop. That night, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror brushing her hair while Daniel got ready for bed behind her. He joked about something on the news. She laughed politely, but her heart wasn't in the room. It was still in that cafe, still replaying Liam's hand on hers, still feeling the heat of something forbidden. She climbed into bed beside her husband, and in the silence, she knew her perfect life was no longer perfect, and her story was no longer simple. What happens when your heart starts living two lives at once? Jessica thought it would end with a smile, a message, a coffee. But some doors, once opened, refused to close. As Liam's presence grows stronger, so does the gap between Jessica and her husband. And the lies? They're getting easier to tell. Keep reading. Because the next step Jessica takes, even if it seems small, will set fire to everything she's built. The next morning, Jessica couldn't focus. She overbrewed the coffee, left the dishwasher open, forgot to feed Cooper until he barked twice and stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. Or maybe she had just finally woken up. Liam's text arrived at 7:43 a.m. "Last night was the most alive I've felt in months. You glow when you're not trying." She stared at her phone for too long. A mixture of guilt and adrenaline twisted in her chest like barbed wire. She replied simply, "You shouldn't say things like that." His answer came instantly. "Then you shouldn't have looked at me the way you did." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her pulse climbing. She didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she turned toward the mirror and stared at herself. Same face. Same golden brown eyes. Same dark hair in a loose ponytail. But there was something different in her expression, a spark she hadn't seen in years. Daniel came downstairs dressed in his usual pale blue dress shirt and khakis. He smiled when he saw her, like he always did. Kissed her on the cheek, like clockwork. "Breakfast smells like burned ambition," he teased, eyeing the blackened toast. Jessica laughed weakly. "Guess I was distracted." He didn't question it. He rarely did. Daniel had always been stable, consistent, supportive. But lately, his presence felt more like background noise than music. Over the next week, Jessica and Liam's messages became a ritual. Always playful. Always just shy of something inappropriate. Until Wednesday. That's when he sent a photo. Just his hand on a mug of coffee at the same cafe. A caption underneath. "Feels empty without you here." She stared at it, her thumb trembling. And just like that, she drove there. It wasn't planned. Not exactly. But the moment she parked outside Cedar Bean Cafe, her body buzzed with something dangerous. Liam was inside, waiting. When he saw her, his smile didn't widen like a boy with a crush. It deepened like a man who already knew the outcome. "You came," he said, standing. "I shouldn't have." "I know." And still, she sat down. This time, they didn't talk about the weather, or fitness, or safe topics. This time, Liam leaned in close and asked, "Do you ever feel like you're sleepwalking through your life?" Jessica's throat tightened. Every day. He reached out, not for her hand, but for a napkin, wrote something down, slid it to her. "Meet me Saturday. At the old fire trail. Noon." She stared at the address. What is this? Just a walk. No expectations. No pressure. But I want to know what you feel when you're not pretending. Jessica blinked. And slowly, she folded the napkin and tucked it into her purse. That night, Daniel told her he'd be working late on Saturday. "City planning meeting," he said, rubbing his temples. "Probably be stuck there all day." "Sorry, babe." Jessica nodded absently. Inside, her heart was pounding. Like fate had just cracked the door wider. Saturday came quickly. Jessica wore simple jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie, trying to look casual. Normal. Untraceable. She parked a block away from the fire trail entrance. Her hands trembled slightly on the wheel. She told herself she was just going for a walk. Fresh air. Nothing wrong with that. But she knew better. Liam was already there, leaning against a tree like something out of a movie. T-shirt, cargo pants, sunglasses tucked into the collar. "You showed up," he said. "I'm not sure why." He smiled. "You don't have to know. Just walk." The trail curved through tall pines and dry brush, the Colorado sun painting everything gold. At first, they walked in silence. Then Liam spoke. "I haven't touched anyone in over a year." Jessica looked at him, startled. He went on, "Not even a kiss. I promised myself I wouldn't until it meant something again." She bit her lip. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," he stopped walking, turning to face her, "I haven't wanted someone this much in years." The world fell quiet around them. Even the birds seemed to hush. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. "Liam," she began. "I'm not asking for anything," he interrupted. "I just need you to know. I want you. Not just your body. You. The way you laugh when you think no one's watching. The way you speak gently to people. The way you're always 2 seconds away from running away from yourself." Jessica's eyes burned. She hated how deeply his words cut. Because they were true. She took a step back. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I know," he said softly. "But that won't stop you from thinking about me every night when you're lying beside him." She turned and walked away, fast. But she didn't delete the napkin from her purse. And she didn't stop thinking about his voice all night. That evening, Daniel cooked dinner. He lit candles, made her favorite pasta, even put on that jazz playlist she loved. Jessica sat across from him, smiling, eating, nodding at the right times. But the entire time, she was somewhere else. Someone else. And when Daniel reached across the table to hold her hand, she let him. But all she could think about was how different it felt from Liam's. What if the silence between two people says more than the words they share? Jessica is torn between comfort and chaos has never looked more tempting. As her husband starts to notice subtle cracks, Jessica finds herself pulled deeper into the world she said she'd never enter. Keep reading. Because in this chapter, one message, just one, will push everything over the edge. Sunday morning in Denver was always peaceful. Sunlight danced across the kitchen tiles as Jessica stood barefoot, watching the coffee drip. Daniel was upstairs shaving, humming a song she didn't recognize, or maybe had stopped noticing years ago. She should have felt calm, safe, grateful. Instead, her mind was replaying Liam's words on that trail. "I want you. The way you're always 2 seconds away from running from yourself." They haunted her, not like a threat, but like a mirror. She hadn't replied to him, not since she walked away. And yet, her body was restless. Like something inside her had been awakened and was pacing its cage, demanding more. Later that afternoon, while Daniel watched the game in the living room, Jessica excused herself to the bathroom. She locked the door, opened her phone. The message from Liam sat at the top of her screen, unopened, but read in her mind 100 times. "You're not a villain, Jessica. You're just someone who wants to feel alive again." Her fingers hovered, and then she typed, "I haven't stopped thinking about you." A pause. Then 3 dots. Then don't. Meet me again. No pressure. Just truth. Jessica closed her eyes. And for once, stopped pretending. Tuesday, 1:07 p.m. Jessica told Daniel she had errands. Something about picking up paint samples for the guest room. Instead, she drove 18 minutes north to a bookstore cafe Liam had mentioned once. He was already there, sitting near the back, a book in his lap he wasn't reading. When he saw her, he smiled, not big, not flashy, just enough to make her chest ache. "You came," he said quietly. "You knew I would." Liam stood slowly. "I want to kiss you so badly right now, but I won't." Jessica swallowed. "Why not?" "Because when I do, I want it to be something you choose, not something you fall into." She sat down without a word. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. They talked. For hours. About nothing and everything. Her favorite novels. His childhood in Flagstaff. The time she crashed her mom's minivan in high school and blamed a raccoon. And beneath every sentence, an invisible thread was pulling them closer. It started small. A touch on the hand. A shared glance that lingered a second too long. And then, in the quiet space between 2 breaths, Liam reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Jessica's breath hitched. "I should go," she whispered. "You don't want to," he replied, eyes darkening. "No," she admitted. "But I have to." He didn't stop her. But as she left, he slipped something into her purse. She didn't find it until she got home. A note. Folded twice. Written in his sharp, confident handwriting. If you ever want to stop pretending, I'll be waiting. No masks. No lies. Just you. Jessica stared at it for 10 minutes. Then she tucked it deep in her drawer, beneath her scarves, where Daniel would never look. That night, Daniel made love to her gently, like he always did, careful, loving, attentive. She smiled, played her part, but her mind was 1,000 miles away. And the entire time, her nails dug into the mattress, trying to silence the voice that whispered Liam's name. The next day, Daniel stood by the window holding his coffee, staring out. "You've been distracted lately," he said softly. Jessica's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. It's like your body's here, but your soul's somewhere else." Jessica swallowed. "Work's been stressful. The community center's pushing for the fundraiser, and—" "You've used that excuse before," he interrupted gently. Silence. She forced a smile. "I'm fine." "Really?" Daniel nodded. "Okay." But his eyes didn't believe her. And for the first time in years, he didn't kiss her before he left for work. Jessica sat at the kitchen table for an hour after he left, staring at the same spot on the wall, trying to remember who she used to be before her life became a script. Eventually, she reached for her phone. "I need to see you. Now." The reply came fast. "My place. I'll text you the code." 15 minutes later, she was parked outside a small townhouse near Sloan's Lake. Her hand shook as she typed in the code Liam had sent. The door unlocked with a soft click. The inside smelled like cedar and spice. Clean, quiet, warm. Liam was in the kitchen, shirt sleeves rolled up, pouring wine into 2 glasses. "You look scared," he said, offering her a glass. "I am." "Why?" "Because I don't know what I'm doing." He stepped closer. "Then let me show you what it feels like to be wanted. No guilt. No rules. Just us." Jessica didn't answer. But she didn't back away either. The space between them evaporated. His hands on her waist. Her breath catching. Every part of her screaming that this was wrong, and yet her body moving as if it had waited for this moment forever. The kiss wasn't soft. It was years of repression, desire, ache, all exploding in a single, electric moment. She moaned softly against his mouth, gripping his shirt, pulling him closer. It was messy, hungry, real. When they finally pulled apart, Jessica's heart was racing. "I can't do this," she whispered. "You already did." She left before anything else could happen. But the kiss had already happened. And as she sat in her car, shaking, trying to catch her breath, she realized something terrifying. She didn't regret it. Not one bit. What if the only thing more dangerous than a secret was the man you were hiding it from? Jessica is caught between a craving she can't resist and a husband who may know too much. Every look, every word, every breath becomes a game of survival, and the clock is ticking. Keep reading. Because when lies sleep next to truth, someone always wakes up screaming. It had been 4 days since the kiss. 3 since the night she slipped into Liam's arms under a cover of darkness. 2 since she deleted their messages in a panic. 1 since her phone went missing and came back like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Jessica sat at the kitchen table that morning, staring blankly at her coffee while Daniel read the news on his iPad. His expression calm. Too calm. He didn't say a word about the missing phone, or the mystery call, or the scent on her clothes that wasn't his. But his silence screamed. And Jessica could feel it, crawling up her spine, that nauseating, electric sense that the walls were listening. She tried to play normal. Toast. Jam. A question about the weather. But Daniel wasn't biting. His smile was rehearsed. Polite. Fragile. Like glass about to shatter. Jessica left the house around noon to run errands, but her hands shook the whole drive. She wasn't sure where she was going until she pulled into a parking garage downtown and messaged Liam. "Jessica, I need to see you. Now." "Liam, come up. I'll make tea, but you're drinking whiskey." When she arrived, the moment the door opened, she collapsed into his arms. No words, just trembling. They sat in silence on his couch for what felt like hours. Jessica stared at the skyline out the window, her head on Liam's shoulder. "I think he knows," she whispered. Liam didn't move. "How sure are you?" Enough to be terrified. He rubbed slow circles on her back. "Then stop. Walk away before it gets worse." But Jessica didn't respond. Because she didn't want to stop. Not really. That night, Jessica returned home before midnight. Daniel was on the porch, sipping bourbon, staring at nothing. She walked past him. "Good night," she muttered. He didn't answer. Inside, the air felt heavier. Like something was brewing. and not just in her own chest. She lay awake until nearly 3 a.m., then drifted into a restless sleep full of voices she couldn't understand, faces she couldn't escape. The next morning, Daniel wasn't in bed or in the kitchen. A note waited for her on the counter. Went for a drive. Be back later. Don't wait up. That had never happened before. Jessica's pulse quickened. Where did he go? What was he doing? She called his number, straight to voicemail. Texted, no response. She even checked their shared location, turned off. By evening, Daniel returned. Calm, quiet, but something in him had changed. He moved with purpose. Every glance felt like an interrogation. And Jessica realized something. He wasn't distant anymore. He was calculating. Later that night, Daniel handed her back her phone. She hadn't even realized he had it again. I found this between the couch cushions, he said casually. Must have slipped. Jessica nodded, taking it with trembling fingers. But inside her messages, one thread was gone. Liam's number. Vanished. She opened her camera roll. Gone too. Even her call log was edited. Her heart pounded. Daniel had her phone. Daniel saw everything. And now he was pretending he hadn't. That was worse. Jessica couldn't breathe. She faked a yawn, mumbled something about a headache, and went upstairs. In the bathroom, she locked the door, turned on the water, and tried not to throw up. She splashed cold water on her face and stared at herself in the mirror. Who was this woman? A liar. A coward. A prisoner of her own choices. She thought about confessing, ending it, telling Daniel the truth, begging for forgiveness. But something stopped her. It wasn't fear of losing him. It was fear of what he'd do next. The following morning, Jessica woke up to a strange sound, a drawer being shut too loudly downstairs. She slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the landing. Daniel was in his office. The door was closed. He never closed that door. Jessica crept down the hallway, heart thudding. Through the crack in the door, she saw him, sitting in front of his laptop, wearing headphones, watching something. She couldn't see the screen, but she saw the look on his face. Emotionless, cold, like he was watching a crime scene. Jessica stepped away quickly, back to the bedroom. She knew, in that moment, her secret wasn't just at risk of being discovered. It was already known, and Daniel was planning his next move. The man she'd married wasn't going to ask questions. He was going to deliver judgment. What if the silence in your home meant more than words ever could? Daniel doesn't need to scream, doesn't need to ask. His actions are speaking louder now. Jessica senses the ground crumbling beneath her feet, every step a gamble with fate. Keep going. The storm isn't coming. It's already here. Jessica had always thought exposure would come like a lightning strike, sudden, loud, final. But this slow unraveling, was worse. She'd wake each morning to Daniel's quiet routine, his steady hands pouring coffee, folding laundry, locking his office behind him. The calm before something she couldn't see. Something building. The man she once knew, affectionate, impulsive, occasionally clumsy, was gone. This Daniel was deliberate, precise, and she was terrified of him. He didn't confront her. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. Instead, he watched. Waited. Jessica felt it in the way he looked at her phone when it buzzed, and how he always seemed to be in the room when she picked it up. In the way he smiled, just a little too long, too sharp, when she said she loved him. He was hunting her, and she was pretending not to bleed. One Friday evening, Daniel suggested they go out for dinner. Somewhere nice. The suggestion alone made Jessica freeze. Date night? She asked, forcing a smile. Yeah, he said. Like we used to. They went to a steakhouse they hadn't visited in years. Daniel was charming, playful, attentive. He even ordered for her, like he used to when they first dated. But something about the way he said her name, so casually, like he was chewing on it, made her lose her appetite. He watched her eat. She barely did. When the waitress brought dessert, Daniel took a bite and said, "You know, I've been thinking about trust lately." Jessica blinked. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. Trust, she echoed. Yeah, he said, nodding thoughtfully. It's strange. You spend years with someone, build this entire life, and you just assume you know who they are. Jessica said nothing. Her heart was thudding so loudly she thought the table might shake. But then, Daniel continued. Something small happens. A little thing. A missing phone. A wrong scent. A strange name. Jessica nearly dropped her fork. And suddenly, he smiled, you start asking yourself questions you never thought you'd need to ask. She swallowed hard. What kind of questions? He looked her dead in the eye. Questions like, who is my wife really? And how much of her life happens when I'm not around? Jessica felt her stomach twist. Daniel. But he waved it off. Don't worry, Jess. Just thoughts. We all have them, don't we? When they got home, she went straight to the bathroom and locked the door. Her reflection stared back at her like a ghost. The next day, Liam messaged. Liam, we need to talk. Not here. I'm scared, Jess. Something's not right. She agreed to meet him at a quiet corner of West Hollow Park just after sundown. Jessica parked 2 blocks away and walked in for the back trail. Liam was already there, pacing, hands in his pockets. What's going on? She asked. He looked pale. Nervous. I got a package, he said. No name. Just a flash drive. With pictures. Jessica's mouth went dry. What kind of pictures? He hesitated. Us. She staggered back a step. There were photos of you leaving my place. Screenshots of our messages. Even audio. Someone bugged my apartment. Jessica's knees went weak. Daniel. Liam nodded. I think he knows everything. They sat on a park bench under a dim lamp. I need to leave town, Liam said. Lay low. Just until this cools down. You should too. Jessica stared into the dark trees. I can't. I don't know what he's planning. If I leave, he'll know I'm guilty. You are guilty, Liam said. So am I. They parted with no hug, no kiss. Just a glance full of regret and quiet panic. That night, Jessica came home and found the house dark. Daniel wasn't in the kitchen, or the bedroom, or his office. She went downstairs and saw a light under the basement door. Slowly, quietly, she crept to the door. It was cracked open. Inside, Daniel sat in front of an old table, disassembling something. Her breath caught. It was a gun. He was cleaning it. Calmly. With surgical precision. He hadn't taken that gun out in years. Not since his father died and left it behind. Jessica backed away silently. She slept with her back to the door that night, every muscle tense, every second a heartbeat louder than the last. The following day, Daniel suggested they go to the lake house for the weekend. Get some air, he said. Clearer heads. Jessica knew she couldn't say no. They packed and drove up together, 2 hours of silence broken only by the low hum of the radio and the occasional cough from Daniel. When they arrived, the lake house was colder than she remembered. The firewood was still dry, the sheets clean. He poured her wine. Lit the fireplace. They sat on the couch. Side by side. Quiet. Then he spoke. I love you, Jess. I've always loved you. She nodded slowly. I love you too. And then he said it. But I know. Jessica's throat closed. I know about Liam, he said. I know about the nights. The lies. The park. The text you deleted but forgot to remove from the cloud. She couldn't move. I know everything. And the fire beside them crackled as Jessica realized. This wasn't the end of their marriage. It was the beginning of something far, far darker. The trap has been set. The lies have been exposed, but there's more beneath the surface. What if everything you thought you knew was part of a much darker plan? Jessica thought she could control her fate, but now, as the truth unravels, she's forced to confront the reality of her actions. Will she be able to escape the consequences of her betrayal? Her heart pounds as she sees the manipulation, the game that Daniel and the mysterious woman have played. Can she still save herself? Or is it already too late? The truth stings like fire. It's time to face the music, and this time, there's no running away. Jessica's hands trembled uncontrollably as she stared at Daniel. Her chest felt tight, each breath more difficult than the last. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was the final moment of truth, the point of no return. For weeks, she had thought she could control this situation, that she could keep everything hidden, that she could keep her marriage intact while sneaking around behind Daniel's back. But now, everything had shattered, and she was left standing in the middle of the wreckage, unsure how it had all fallen apart. Daniel's voice was cold, cutting through her thoughts. You're not the only one who has secrets, Jess. You've been playing a dangerous game, but you didn't count on me outsmarting you. Her mind raced. What are you talking about, Daniel? What have you done? Daniel's eyes, once warm and loving, now seemed empty. He was a different person, someone she didn't recognize. She didn't know when the change had happened, but she could see now that it had been gradual, creeping in like a silent storm, ready to unleash its fury. She had always been too wrapped up in her own lies to notice. I've been watching you, Daniel said, his voice steady but filled with a chilling calmness. Every little thing you've done, every glance, every message, every sneaky excuse to leave the house, I've seen it all. You thought I didn't know, didn't you? Jessica's heart sank. I never meant for it to get this far, Daniel. I never wanted to hurt you. I I don't even know how it happened. Don't give me that. Daniel snapped. You chose this. You chose to betray me. And you thought I wouldn't find out? You thought you could get away with it? With him. Her breath caught in her throat. Liam, it was a mistake. I thought it was something different, but it wasn't. Daniel stood up abruptly, pacing the room. His footsteps echoed in the silence that had settled between them. You're right about one thing. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. And now I'm making my own choice. Jessica's mind spun. What do you mean? What are you going to do? For a moment, Daniel didn't respond. He just stared at her, his eyes dark, filled with something she couldn't name. Then, slowly, he spoke. I've been planning this for months, Jess. I've been gathering information, watching your every move. And the moment I had enough, I decided I would give you one last chance to tell the truth. But now, there's no more pretending. There's no more lies. Jessica's pulse raced as she clutched at the fabric of the couch, trying to steady herself. You've been planning this? All along. Daniel's lips curled into a bitter smile. You think I'm the fool here, Jess? You thought you could play me, but you didn't even realize I was playing you the whole time. He walked over to the table and picked up a small, folded piece of paper, holding it out in front of her. Jessica hesitated but took it, her hands shaking. Her breath was shallow as she unfolded the paper. The note was short, the handwriting neat but impersonal. It read, The game is far from over, Jessica. You thought you had control, but now it's my turn. The truth is coming out. Don't be surprised when it all falls apart. D. Jessica's stomach twisted. What is this? Who's D? Daniel's face remained stoic as he took a seat across from her. You think you're the only one with secrets, don't you? I've been seeing someone too. Someone who knows how to keep their lies buried. Someone who knows the game just as well as you do. Jessica's breath hitched. No. You've been with someone else. His eyes met hers, cold and unfeeling. Yes, Jess. And now you know. The truth is, you're not the only one who's been playing this game. You've been so focused on your own little affair that you didn't even see me getting what I needed from someone else. Her heart pounded in her chest. Who? Who is she? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the door, his voice barely above a whisper. Let's just say, you'll meet her soon enough. Jessica's world seemed to tilt as she tried to process everything. Daniel had been seeing someone else? But who was she? And why hadn't he told her sooner? She had spent so much time focusing on her own betrayal, her own guilt, that she had never once questioned his actions. Now, it seemed, she had been too naive, too blind. Just as she was about to speak, the door to the lake house creaked open. Jessica's stomach lurched. She turned, and there, standing in the doorway, was a woman. A woman she didn't recognize. The woman was tall, elegant, with dark, piercing eyes that seemed to see right through her. Her presence was commanding, and Jessica felt a wave of unease wash over her. This was the woman Daniel had been seeing. She stepped into the room, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, and stopped beside Daniel, who looked at her with a cold, calculated smile. This is her, Daniel said, his voice smooth. The woman I've been seeing. Jessica's heart dropped into her stomach. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. The woman turned to Jessica, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You're the one who thought she could hide, huh? The one who thought she could play the game and come out unscathed. Jessica felt the weight of her betrayal crashing down on her. The game she had played, the affair with Liam, the lies, the deception had come full circle. And now, it was all crashing down around her. Do you think you're the only one who knows how to deceive? The woman continued, her voice dripping with disdain. You thought you could hide behind your lies, but now it's all out in the open. Daniel stood beside her, his expression unreadable. Everything you've done, Jess, has led to this moment. And now, it's too late to fix anything. Jessica's knees buckled as she sank back into the couch. The room seemed to spin. The truth was here, and there was no denying it. Her marriage was over. Everything she had built was gone. She had thought she could keep everything together, that she could control the narrative. But now, as the walls closed in, she realized just how naive she had been. Daniel had been playing her the entire time. And now, she was the one who had lost.